Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. I am Bruce Beal, owner of 407 and Beyond, and today our guest is vacation planner extraordinaire, wonderful person. I'm looking forward to talking with her, Megan Torrez, out of Pennsylvania. So, Megan, how you doing?
I'm good, Bruce. How are you?
I'm doing good. I have
Good.
been looking forward to our discussion this evening. I saw
Yes.
we're going to do a recap of your recent
Yes.
excursion to Iceland, right?
Yeah,
And
so
Norway.
I did both.
Okay.
Iceland and Norway.
So I have seen the photos, the reels that you've made. I've
Yes.
been following along on social media, and your vacation it looked stunning. It looked
Yeah.
exciting. It looked like a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to hearing about all the details.
Yeah, I'm excited to share them. It was the trip of a lifetime, to say the least.
Good. Well, then then we have a lot of exciting stuff to hear about then. So why don't
Yes.
you get us started and give me kind of like a rough outline of your itinerary? Which countries were you in, and how long was your trip overall?
Yeah, so I was in each country for 5 days. I flew from JFK to Oslo in Norway. And then from Oslo, I went over to Bergen, which is where I stayed for most of my time in Norway. After those 5 days, I hopped on another plane, went back to Oslo, and then went over to Iceland. And I spent another 5 days in Iceland before coming home. So I was gone for 10 days. It felt a lot longer when I was there, but it was good.
What before we get into some of the details of your trip, what inspired you, or what was the draw over to Iceland and Norway for you? Had it been something that you've been always wanting to travel to, a destination, or was it kind of spur of the moment? Talk me through your decision to visit those locations.
Yeah, so it was actually a little bit of both. So I have always dreamed of seeing the Northern Lights. And I was just kind of looking at like different countries where you can see the Northern Lights in and like how you can catch them. And then I also was like walking around Epcot one day and I was like, what would it be like if I went to every single country alone?
Oh, I like that.
Oh, in the World
I
Showcase.
like
Like,
it.
what would it be
Yeah.
like if I went to every country here? So, um, I feel like Norway is just a really cool place to start. It's, a pretty friendly country to visit. It's great for people that speak English because a lot of the people in Norway do speak English along with Norwegian. So it's a really great like starting travel destination if you're going abroad for the first time or if you're going abroad by yourself, like I was. So that's kind of why I landed on Norway. But the main draw between Norway and Iceland was definitely seeing the Northern Lights.
I give us a quick spoiler. Did you see the Northern Lights on your trip?
I did see the Northern Lights on my
Good.
trip.
Okay. I want to get into that and hear all about that.
Mhm.
You have made mention of being in World Showcase at Epcot, and wanting to visit all of the pavilions in person, which
Yeah.
I think is a really cool goal to have. I really like that. I guess that kind of confirms that you go left at World Showcase, starting at Mexico and Norway,
Yeah.
not only in World Showcase, but also your travel around the world.
Yeah. I usually do start in Mexico. However, I'm not a purist. I know that most people that start in Mexico will only start in Mexico, but I
Yeah.
actually do both. It just kind of depends on where I start the day. If I start at the front gate, I usually go to Mexico first, but if I start at the international gateway, like
Right.
coming off the Skyliner, then I go over to Canada. So
Okay.
honestly, I'm not really loyal to
You'll
either.
do either. Right.
I will do either. Yeah. I'm more for like hopping around, like doing a couple and then going and doing something else and doing a couple more. So
That's
and
how I am.
honestly, I'll probably end up doing that on my journey to visit all of the pavilions and actual in their actual lands.
I think it would be a
Uh,
little difficult to plan out your international travel based on the location.
the
Yeah.
layout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's leave Epcot. Let's get back to Iceland and Norway. So, um, 10 days. Travel by
Hmm.
yourself. Talk to me a
Yeah.
little bit about what that was like. Traveling solo by yourself to a new location that you had not been before.
Yeah. It can definitely be intimidating to be traveling by yourself, and on top of that, to be a woman traveling alone can add a little bit more intimidation to that. But for me, it was just a way to take a break from life and take a break from everything that's going on and just spend time with myself. I know a lot of people like have to spend time with other people. But it was really nice to just slow down and spend time with myself, getting comfortable visiting places by myself, getting comfortable eating dinner and meals by myself. And it was a very empowering experience by the end to be able to sit at a restaurant comfortably alone and not feel like I have to be on my phone or, find other people to talk to. Like I could just sit and enjoy a meal with myself. And I think that there's something really powerful and special about being able to do that. And I really appreciated that about my trip.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. Talk to me, or give what advice would you give to somebody who was looking, maybe they didn't have someone to travel with, or they're going to a destination around the world that their inner circle is not interested in. What advice would you give to somebody who may feel intimidated traveling internationally alone?
Yeah, I think the advice I would give is don't be afraid to be alone, but also if you're traveling to other destinations and you do want to go and meet friends, be approachable. When you're out to dinner, when you're doing other things, you know, or maybe you're on a tour, walk up to other people and have a chat with them, ask where they're from, talk to other travelers. It's a great way to meet other people from around the world. I met some really interesting people. So if you're afraid to travel alone, just think that there's so many times in your life where you might delay joy because you're waiting on other people.
Hmm.
Just think about the fact that you don't have to wait for anybody to go and experience all the things that you've wanted to experience. That like your joy rests in your hands.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is I think that's wise and empowering, and you don't want to put off something to down the road because you don't know if you're gonna be able to visit
Yeah, you
those
never know.
places later on in life. So so you made mention that you flew out of JFK. Well, can you go back and walk me through your flight schedule and the first destination that you arrived at?
Yeah, so I left out of JFK. I had a red eye, so my flight was at like 11:50. I flew on Norse Airlines, which is actually a newer airline. I enjoyed it. I know that people say it's like a budget airline. I did fly in like their premium class, so it had like seats that recline like I had a footrest that reclined up. I got a nice meal on board. It was chicken fajitas, which I wasn't expecting.
Okay.
Chicken fajitas, but it was good. Um, I get as good as plain chicken fajitas can get. Um, the flight was a yeah,
As good as
as good as
plain
they
chicken fajitas can get.
like I don't want to complain. So like they weren't terrible. I could eat it, but
Right.
why chicken fajitas? My
Yeah.
return flight meal was even worse. I'll talk about that later. So I flew from JFK to Oslo. Oslo is the capital of Norway. So a lot of their international flights will fly into there. Um, so that flight took about 6.5 hours.
Okay. And that was JFK
So
to Oslo, right?
yep.
Okay.
And really, it was a easy flight. You know, I knew there was the time difference going in to Norway. So Norway is about 6 hours ahead of the East Coast. So I ended up staying up during some of my flight and only sleeping a couple hours so that by the time I got to Norway, it was going to be evening and I can go to sleep and wake up the next day and not feel so jet lagged. That was my approach. It actually worked pretty well.
Good. Good.
Um, so I got to Oslo. I stayed in the airport for a couple hours and then got a connecting flight right over to Bergen. Um, it is on the other side of the coast, right along the Northern Sea.
Okay.
Um, and I stayed in Bergen for 5 days, and just Bergen is considered I believe they call it the gateway to the fjords.
Oh,
Um, so you can visit a ton of fjords leaving from Bergen because it's just in a like centrally located place. Um,
how would you describe the town, or
um,
like how big was it first?
so it was a city. I wouldn't say it was a big city.
Okay.
I used to live in Philadelphia, and Philly is a fairly large city, and I think that Bergen was probably like half of Philly size.
Okay.
It was a
Gotcha.
lot smaller. It was very easy to navigate. I did take public transportation while I was there. Um, and something that I recommend to all travelers looking to go to Bergen is to get a Bergen card. So it's £50 and it included all of their public transportation and then entrance to different museums and different discounts. So I was actually able to take the train from the airport right into the city center. And I didn't have to like purchase a ticket or anything like that because I had that Bergen card. It's like their visitor traveler card.
Yeah, that's good advice. And that advice is certainly transferable to other European cities.
Yeah.
I've had that like in Paris and Lucerne, Switzerland,
Hmm.
and in Italy. So that's really good advice because the times that I've used a similar card, and tell me about this one in particular, but it's like unlimited rides on transportation through
Yeah.
for a certain amount of days,
Yep.
and either free admission or discounts to some of the attractions in the city. So
Exactly.
cool, cool.
Yes.
So you stayed there. Which hotel did you stay at? Well, actually, before we get to the hotel and what you
Yeah.
did there, how did you know of Bergen, and how did you decide that that was where you wanted to go?
Yeah, so I'm going to be honest, I knew nothing about Norway before I planned this trip. I did so many Google searches, like where to visit in Norway, what to do in Norway. I
The
looked on
closest.
YouTube, like things to do in Norway that's easy for travelers. Like
Yeah.
I had no idea. I've never met anybody else that's been to Norway. It's a pretty well visited country, but from what I can expect, not well visited from American travelers, more so from European travelers. So
Okay.
there, I had a hard time, like finding stuff to be like guides and stuff like that. So I really took a shot in the dark with Bergen. I saw some
Okay.
pictures. I saw that, it was popular with travelers, and I was like, yeah, that looks nice. Let's do that. That looks good.
That's awesome. That is awesome. All right. So you found it online, decided to go there.
Google,
Well, Google was.
Google.
Which hotel did you stay at, and tell us about the accommodations there.
Yeah, so Bergen is known for these wooden houses along their wharf. They're like brightly colored wooden houses. I stayed at a hotel right behind them. It was called the Clarion Hotel, um, right in the downtown section. So I was basically in the heart of Bergen. Uh, the room was really nice. I actually got assigned room 407, which I thought was so funny. I literally was so tired from traveling that when the lady told me, I didn't even realize until I got to the room door, and I was like, "Oh my god, like this is so weird." It's like this is crazy.
That was a sign that it was going to be a fantastic trip right
Yeah,
there.
I was like, "Oh, okay, wow, my 407 family is here with me. Like this is great." The room was nice. It was like on the smaller side, but in terms of like rooms in Europe, it was pretty big.
Okay. Yeah.
They're very big into duvets there, which is
Okay.
lovely. They had like these wonderful duck duvets. Like
Wow.
I didn't know ducks made duvets. But yeah, it was a nice hotel. It had breakfast in the morning that was included, which was really
Good.
nice. Um, it had like you can like call it like schedule a taxi to come in the morning if you needed like to taxi somewhere, and um, it didn't really have like the traditional amenities that you find in like American hotels, like a swimming pool or stuff like that. But um, it
Well,
had a
you know,
bar, it
honestly,
had a
when
bar, and it had my room, so that was good enough for me.
it was enough, it was
It was
enough.
enough.
Yeah, you know, like, when you're traveling abroad like that, especially like in Europe, so some of those amenities like a pool, just not necessary. Just not
Yeah, no,
necessary.
it
Yeah,
really
yeah.
isn't. I don't think I would have even had time to get in a pool had there been one.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really mind. I did see signs that they had a dry spa, but I did not
Okay.
find it. I
What
went
about
searching I went searching for it, but I didn't see it.
what about an ice plunge? Any ice plunges during your trip?
I did do one ice
Did
plunge
you?
and it was freezing. It was so painful.
Was that
Um
here? Was that Norway or was that
it
in
it was
Iceland?
actually in Iceland.
Okay, so we'll get to
Um
that.
we will get to it. It was cold, it was painful, but it was it was nice. I would do it again. I would do it again.
Painful but recommend,
But
is what it sounds
recommended.
like. Okay,
Yeah,
all
it
right.
was really
Well,
nice, but like really cold.
we will we'll have to delve into that a little bit. So
Yes.
what were some of the sites and attractions that you saw in Norway?
Yeah, so in Norway, the things that I really wanted to see in Norway, I wanted to see um, the houses in Bergen, so those wooden houses. I wanted to see a fjord because I didn't even
Hmm.
know what a fjord was. Just liked I liked the sound of it. I wanted to go check that out.
Right.
And I really wanted to see that. Just bear with me. I really wanted to see mountain goats.
I get it. I get it.
Um, I was actually able to accomplish the mountain goats on my first day,
Okay.
along with the colored houses. So since my hotel was so close to the colored houses, I was able to actually go. I brought my book. I had a cider that's made from the fruit in the fjords. And I was able to sit and read in front of those houses because they do have restaurants lining them. So that was really nice.
What did that
And
cider taste like?
it was a pear cider.
Okay.
They had pear and then they had an apple cherry cider, and the cherry is actually like the most known fruit for the fjords. It tasted very like clean and crisp. The bubbles were really nice. It wasn't too sweet. It was more on the dry side.
Okay.
Um,
Sounds
I
good. Sounds
I
good.
really yeah I really enjoyed it. I thought it was perfect. The weather, I will start by saying the weather in Norway was in like the 50s to 60s range.
Okay.
So it was chilly, but it wasn't like if you're from the Northeast like me, it was regular fall weather. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
anything to scoff at. Like it was wonderful. I enjoyed it, but like it was on the chillier end, so I did like have like a scarf and like hats and jackets. So I sat outside for most of my meals, which they had a ton of outdoor seating. But if you're visiting, just know that like it does get cold quickly, especially as the sun starts going down.
Now, when you were out dining, did the locals also dine outside, or did you just take advantage of that being a tourist?
No, no. So everybody was dining outside.
Okay.
I think most locals actually prefer to dine outside because we're getting towards the last bit of summer here, and the nights are going to start turning very long in Norway because they do
Okay.
have the polar night there. And so I think everybody in the city is just kind of savoring these last bits of sunshine, and just enjoying it while they can.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So talk to me about some of the food items that you had.
So I did have, there is one food item that I knew I wanted to try, which is the fish soup. You can find it in the fish market in Bergen. I did have it. Um, it was just okay. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I finished the whole thing. I'm
Okay.
okay. I'm not gonna waste food. I'm not that kind of gal. But Would I order it again? Probably not.
Do you know what type of fish was in it?
Do not remember.
Was it like a creamy soup?
I
Was it like a
it,
stew? Was it
it was like gray-ish.
Yeah, you're not
It was,
selling it.
it was like on the thicker end. You know when you like
Okay.
mix flour into something, like a lot of flour because you want to thicken it and it just kind
Yeah.
of becomes sludgy? It was kind of like that where like it felt like a roux base almost with just like a
Okay.
lot of water added to it. I wanted to love it. I did. I promise. I really wanted to love it, but it just didn't really taste like anything.
So just on the bland side then.
Yeah, it was just kind of
Okay.
bland. There was a couple fish bones in it, which I didn't mind, but
Ah.
like, come on, fish bones? Um,
What else
okay,
did you have?
okay. So besides the fish soup, I found it very interesting as I was going around trying all these different restaurants that the items on the menus were not what I expected because I thought that it was gonna be more like pickled fish and just like, fish and chips, different stuff like that that you typically see across Europe. Um, but it was actually a lot of hamburgers and pizza,
That's so
and
weird. Really?
I I was really surprised by it. And in fact, I actually asked. I went on a tour while I was there, and I asked the tour guide. I was like, "So what's the deal with the food? Like, what should I try here?" And he was like, Norwegians love two things. They love hamburgers and they love pizza. Um, and that's on every single menu. So I did have a lot of pizza while I was there.
Hey, well,
It
how
was
was it?
good. It was good. And a
Okay.
lot of it was made with local cheese from like the sheep and the goats and stuff like that on the mountains. Loved
Mm,
it.
yeah.
Loved it. But I was just very surprised. I did, I'm just remembering, I did have a reindeer hot dog while I was there.
I didn't know that anybody ate reindeer. I didn't know
Well,
that
I
that was.
well I do. I ate reindeer.
Now you do, right? Yeah,
I do.
exactly.
Yeah.
How was it?
Um it tasted like a regular hot dog to me. Like it didn't have you ever tried venison? Like deer
I
meat?
have not in the form of like a sausage or hot dog, but
It
I have had it.
Yeah, it was similar to like the taste of venison, but
Okay.
they put like this purple sauce on it. I think it was called like the Lingenberg sauce. I just know that you can get it in IKEA. You can get this sauce in IKEA.
Oh, okay, okay, but not. Sorry, I took that as you could get the reindeer
No, I actually
at
don't know.
IKEA.
I don't know if you can find reindeer hot dogs in IKEA, but I do know that I remember going to IKEA and seeing that sauce. It's called like
Okay,
the Lindenberg sauce. It's something like that. It's like a
okay,
purplish sauce. It's like a berry. Um, they put that on top with like mustard and onions.
yeah.
I didn't know how that was gonna work, like berries and reindeer, like
Yeah.
and onion, but it worked. It was fine. It was a lovely dinner. It was like 6 krona or something like that. It was a gigantic meal. I wasn't expecting that either. Like the size of my forearm. I was like, what is happening? But it was fine.
Was that what would you say would be the highlight of any of the food items that you tried while in Norway?
I tried their ice cream and it was so good. Like I don't really eat a lot of dairy products, which is actually really ironic since I just said I spent the whole week eating pizza. Um, I don't really have a lot of dairy products, so I had the ice cream and I was like really expecting like feel sick after, but I didn't. It was wonderful. I
Interesting.
don't know what was in their ice cream, but it was so good. It was like an espresso coffee flavor ice cream. Um,
Sounds good.
it was really.
Was it cow's milk
I
or
didn't
something
ask.
else? Okay,
That
it
wasn't my
wasn't
business. It wasn't
it
my
wasn't
business what
it
kind of
wasn't
milk it
reindeer.
was. That's not my business. What I do know is that was good. I didn't ask too many questions after I had the reindeer hot dog. Just started trying things. I didn't want to worry about it.
So the ice cream was the hit food item then.
Yeah, that
Okay.
and the pastries that I tried there.
Hmm.
The pastries were to die for. Like I
Did you
wish I could have.
have did you have school bread? Because that's a huge item over at
I did.
Epcot.
I did have school bread. They actually
Okay.
had that as like part of the breakfast buffet in my hotel.
So you
It
started every
was
day with
so.
it.
It was so good. That and the apple cake.
Okay.
That's another big item in Epcot. They also had that there, and it was just like the best. Like so good, so rich. Like the pastries were just to die for. Like I really do wish I could just bring them back with me or just like
So
ask a pastry chef to come to America so that I can enjoy it more.
how does the school bread and the pastries in the Norway pavilion compare to what you had in Norway?
um they taste different, but not like terribly different.
Okay.
They are better in Norway. I will just preface with that. I'm so sorry to all of the people that love the Epcot version, but um the Epcot version is a bit more bland, I feel like, than what you actually get in Norway. So a lot of the pastries in Norway were a lot richer and had like more in-depth flavors, I felt like, than what's available in the Norway Pavilion.
Okay. Did you moving off of food since
Yeah,
we're in the Epcot pavilion
derailing.
currently? Did did you see or tour any stave churches? And then you also posted a photo of a troll, which looked awfully like the one in the Epcot pavilion. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I did. I'll start with the Stave Church. I did visit the Fulcroft Stave Church. It was just a little bit outside Bergen, so I got on a bus and headed over there using that Bergen card for the transportation. Um, it was really beautiful. I wish that I could like bottle the smell inside that church because the smell of like the wood was
Mm.
just so nice and rich and like doesn't make sense because it's so old, but it just smelled so fresh in there. It was so nice. Really beautiful. I did take a video that I will be posting later on. So if you watch this and then you see that video, here's your warning. But I did take a video while I was at that church and I was like, oh my God, they have that at Epcot.
They copied Epcot, right?
They copied Epcot. Epcot has that. Like, oh my gosh. Um, so I did see the Stave Church, which was really beautiful. And then I saw that troll, but I wasn't expecting to see it. Like I didn't know that he was gonna be there. So
Oh, it was by happenstance.
yes, I accidentally found the troll. So I there is a mountain above Bergen. It's called Mount Floyen, and you can take a funicular, which is like a train on the mountainside that'll take you up to the top. So I got on the funicular, I went up to the top. It's like a really misty morning, and Bergen is actually known as like the most rainy city in the world. So they get rain like 260 days out of the year.
Oh, wow.
So it was raining in the morning. I went up there. It's like you're standing in the clouds and peeking out, I see hands. And I was like, what is that? So I got out of the train station. I'm like, what is that over there? And then I got closer and it was the troll from the pavilion. I guess not from the pavilion, but like he was from the Norway pavilion.
That's
Couldn't believe
funny
it.
that you just saw it by chance.
Yeah, I had no idea that he was up there. I've looked at pictures of Mount Floyen before to like see if I wanted to, take the time to go up there and like see what was up there in the first place. And I've never seen pictures of him up there on like any of the reviews on
Yeah.
their website. So I was so surprised that and it was like the same exact size as the one in Epcot.
Really? Okay.
Um Same goofy expression. I couldn't believe it. I literally found the troll in Norway. That was so cool.
That is
It was
cool.
just really unexpected, so I was so excited when I saw him. Nobody else was taking pictures with him, and I was immediately like, troll.
American Epcot fan right there, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh my god. Um, but since we're already up on Mount Floyen, I will say that I accomplished my second goal in Norway, which was to see goats,
Oh,
like
okay.
mountain goats.
Yes.
So after I saw the troll, I'm like riding this high of like, oh my gosh, can't believe this just happened. And I was like, well, let me go take a path. They have like hiking trails up there. So I'm like, let me just go take a misty morning walk. And again, out of the mist, I'm like, what's in the path? I knew that there's not a lot of predators in Norway. They do have polar bears, but they have them in like the north part of Norway, and I was in the southern part of Norway, so polar
Okay.
bears was not an issue. They don't really have a lot of uh, like dangerous predators, so I was just wondering what was in the road, and it ended up being a herd of goats
Very cool.
just sitting up there on the
Very cool.
hillside, and they'd live up there. They have like e-collars so that they're able to like live in a certain section of the mountain without getting to like other more different special parts of the mountain, I guess. I tried to read the sign to know what was happening, but only half of it was in English, so I only got half. Um,
How close did you
and
get to him?
I pet the goats.
Did you?
We were really good friends. Um, I actually went back up to Mount Floyen on my last day to say goodbye to the goats. I couldn't leave without saying goodbye to them. They were so cute. My favorite one was like this white and gray goat that loved to sit by itself on a bench and just overlook the city. Her name was Froya, and she lived her own life. So I did sit on the bench with Froya and give her some pets. I pet all of the goats. They were absolutely so cool to witness and see.
That sounds like a lot of fun. That is
Yeah.
cool. While you were there, did you see any like Viking heritage or historic sites or references for tourists of anything like Viking related?
There is so much Viking related stuff there. If you are interested in the Vikings, both Norway and Iceland are such great destinations for you. So, um, one of the things that I did while I was in Norway was I tried to make time every morning to go to a couple museums. There's so many museums in Norway in general, but there's also just a ton of museums in Bergen. So I actually went to about 3 museums a day. Um,
Wow.
one of those museums was actually a maritime museum, and they were able to talk about different ships that the Vikings made and um, just different things about like the Vikings' way of life, which I thought was really interesting. Uh, if you are interested in Vikings, I didn't personally go inside of this, but they do have a Viking village.
Oh, that's cool.
So I stood outside the Viking village. I didn't go inside because I was doing something else at the time. But um,
You were with your goat friends.
I was with my goat friends. I was preoccupied. Uh, but you could go inside the Viking village and like try different food from that like replicated from the time, see the different houses, see people that are like dressed
Mm.
as period, accurate Vikings, which is really interesting. Um, and in every single gift shop that you go to, there will be something Viking related. If that's your thing, you will find it.
That definitely would have been an experience or attraction that I would have gone in. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Very, very cool. A lot of the stave churches are also from like the Vikings era, so
right.
they do have a bunch of those across Norway. They actually also have one in Iceland. So if you're interested in Vikings, then yeah, that might be the travel destination for you to look into because there was just a ton. I personally like I think Vikings are interesting, but I was more interested in the goats than like going in the Viking village. That's just like what I happen to be interested in.
I hear you. I hear you. Did you? I know. At beginning of the show, you made mention that you saw the Northern Lights. Now, did you
I
see
did.
them in Norway?
So I did look for them in Norway. So I downloaded an app. It's called Hello Aurora, and it tells you based off of your location the likelihood that you'll see the northern lights. So it gives you like the KP index, which is essentially like the solar activity, and then it tells you like cloud coverage and stuff like that. So I got a notification on the app saying the KP index is getting higher, go outside. And so I raced outside. And I ran from one side of the city to the other. I looked in every dark corner I could. I didn't see them while I was in Bergen. I think it was because it was a like partially cloudy evening.
Okay.
Um, so I did only see them when I was in Iceland, but I did look because during certain times of the year you can see them in Norway as well.
Okay. Okay. So I'm sure you were disappointed not seeing them at that point of your trip, not
Yeah.
knowing that you would see them in Iceland.
I was just really holding on to hope that I would see them in
Yeah.
Iceland because
Good.
it's a lot more common to see them there than Norway. Well, at least in the
Okay.
southern part of Norway where I was. So I just knew in my heart I was going to see them, and I wasn't going to give up hope.
Good. Good. Anything else in Norway, food related, tours or iconic sites that you visited before we start talking about the second portion of your trip?
Yeah, so I think the last part I'll talk about for Norway was just seeing the fjords and going on a fjord tour. So I had booked the tour, which is actually a tour that we as 407 agents can book for our clients. Um, so I went on that tour to kind of test it out, see what it would be like. It was a long day. I think that I left Bergen at 7 in the morning and I got back at 7 in the evening.
Oh, wow.
So, but it was nice because it was round trip transportation. So even though I was gone all day, I didn't have to worry about like how I was getting back or like anything like that. So they took us on like multiple stops along the way. So you got to see a lot of Norway while you went. Um, but the fjords itself were just absolutely beautiful. I went and saw Osland Fjord, and then I also saw Havadanger, which is one of the largest fjords there. And um, we also saw, trying to see if I can find the name of it. We saw Flam, which is like a center point. They have a train that runs from Bergen to Flam and then from Flam to Oslo. It's about
Okay.
7 hours round trip. Um, so I got to see that town, which was really nice and interesting. Got
For
pizza there
naturally, naturally,
naturally.
yeah. For listeners who are unfamiliar with, I think your dog just heard the word pizza and got excited.
Yeah, he
Um,
wants pizza.
tell the audience, what is a fjord and what was your impression of that tour that you took?
Yeah, so I wasn't really sure what the tour would be. I didn't know if they would just like drive us there or if it was more of like a hands-on tour where they would like talk to you about different things along the way. Honestly, it was a mix of both. On the way there, our tour guide gave us just a ton of facts about Norway. He was super kind and explaining different things about like the Norwegian lifestyle, the history of Norway, discussing he taught me what a fjord was because I actually didn't know. So a fjord is a body of water that it has to be salt water. It can't
Okay.
be fresh water. It has to stream into the ocean, like have a connection to the ocean, and it has to be this one I found really interesting. It has to be surrounded by land on three sides.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yeah. So I thought that was a unique qualification. I didn't realize like what that meant until I actually saw it in person. Um,
Was it powerful seeing it in person? Was it pretty? How would you describe like seeing it in person?
yeah, seeing it in person, it feels like you're in a movie. Like it doesn't like it feels like you're on a Microsoft background and not like in real life. Like it you just are like whose calendar am I looking at? Like it's so beautiful. It's like hard to conceptualize and like when you're there, you're just like so in awe that these were formed by glaciers and you're just like what did this used to look like?
Yeah.
Um it it's very powerful to be in there. It also makes you feel very small because they are just so high and they're just so tall. They're just like these giant mountains that have just been cut and have water running through them. Um and here we are in our little boat driving through like like it's not some amazing thing around us. Um But it was good. So the first part of the tour was actually on like in a van, and it was a nice van. It wasn't like a scary van. I would like to preface that it was a nice van. Um, and we stopped along the way, and then we got up to Flom, and then got on a boat and took a boat back towards Gravaringer, I think it was, and got off there, and then took another bus back to Bergen. So we had the same tour guide from beginning to end. He did talk a ton throughout the tour, and then on the way back, he was like, "I'm gonna shut up now. Everybody's tired. You guys can sleep," which is really nice. Um, but I really liked that tour. I would definitely recommend that if you're going to another country and maybe there's a lot that you want to see, but you're not really sure how to like plan out seeing it, or you're worried about like driving, like you don't want to have to rent a car, but you want to see things that are far away. Maybe you don't want to take public transportation. A tour is honestly a really great way to like see a lot of the country without having to go through some of those harder tasks like renting a car, like figuring it out yourself, because the tour guide had all of these stops planned along the way. We
Right.
stopped maybe 7 times. We saw waterfalls. He knew exactly what shops were open so people can stop for like the restroom. Um, and he was just so knowledgeable about just Norway in general and giving us facts and different things that we can take with us on our trips. So uh, I definitely recommend taking at least one tour whenever you go somewhere. It's also a great experience to like meet people. I did meet a nice couple from Scotland in my tour group. There weren't any other Americans, which is okay. Um, there were
That's
some
part of
people
the
from
experience.
that is part of the experience. There was
Yeah.
people from Scotland. There was a group from Ireland. There was just people from all over the world. It gives you a great chance to just meet people and ask them about their travels and find out what else they're doing in the country and like see like, oh, you've been here, oh, I've been there, and I've, it's really nice to have that group to go with for the day and to see all these different things. And i I really liked it. The tour guide was great. He made really funny jokes, although sometimes I was the only one that laughed. He did. We passed an IKEA, and he called it the Swedish embassy, which I thought was so funny, and nobody else was laughing. I don't know if it was because it was 7:30 in the morning, or if I was the one that thought that was really funny.
That is funny.
Um, I thought that was hilarious. Uh, I will say something that shocked me was the roads in Norway. They drive on the same side as the roads in the US, but they just drive through so many mountains. We went through 35 tunnels
Wow.
one way.
Wow. Wow.
35 tunnels. The longest of those tunnels that we went through was like 11 miles.
Oh, that's amazing. What was that like?
Um, it was like, we have tunnels here, but they are nothing compared to the tunnels there. The tunnels there, they have like places that you can pull over if you need to.
Really?
Yeah, like large shoulders. They have like sections of the tunnel where like trucks can fit into, and you look at the wall and it's just like a mountainside that it's been cut into. And the tunnels are all fairly new. Um, so before the tunnels were built, you couldn't get to like Bergen to Flom in one day, or like Bergen to Oslo in one day. Like it was just really hard for people to travel in the country. So the tunnels are such an important part of travel now there. Um, but I will say that they had the tunnels in Iceland too, and I didn't notice it as much in Norway because I wasn't driving, but in Iceland, you're in the tunnel for so long. I was in one of the tunnels in Iceland for like 20 minutes. By the time you get out, you're like, the sun, I can't see. Like you feel like a vampire crawling out of the center of the earth.
That's so interesting. I mean, it makes sense, but yeah, that's so interesting. I
Yeah.
mean, that would make the drive in and of itself, part of the tour that you were on.
Oh, definitely. The drive was definitely part of the tour. There was just so much. You looked out the window and it was like this. You would drive through like Storybrooke towns, then you would drive and see pastures, and then you would drive and you'd be in the heart of a mountain. Because why drive around a mountain when you can just go right through
Right.
it? Um,
Um,
yeah, so it was a really cool tour. It was a great time to just see a lot of different stuff, and it was nice because I didn't have to drive.
yeah, you made mention about the convenience of the tour and having the ability to use that as transportation to nearby towns and cities. I totally agree. There are different styles of traveling internationally. You can do like the full tour, which means you're with the same group on the flights and city by city with a tour guide for the duration of the trip. You can go more like a la carte, like you did, where you picked your own flights and your own hotels and your own activities to do. That is how I typically travel abroad. Is that a la carte? But every day I book a different experience as part of a tour, whether it
Yeah,
be a tour guide through the Colosseum in Rome, or on Mount Pilatus in Lucerne, Switzerland, or the Eiffel Tower in Paris. It just it does a couple of different things. One, it gives you that background knowledge. You don't feel like you have to like you're going to miss anything because the tour guide's going to show you everything, all the main points of that destination. And to your point, if a city or landmark is 45, 60, 90 minutes away, when you book that tour, transportation is included, and a
right.
lot of times in a van, like you mentioned. So I highly recommend that, and so I'm glad to hear that that's the approach that you took while you were there.
Yeah, it was one of my favorite days that I was in Norway, just because it gave me the chance to see so much, and I learned so much from that tour while I was there. So it was just a great time to be able to do both. Because you can go to museums, you can see certain things, but there's just something so unique about like hearing it from someone that actually lives there, that like you don't get from like reading something in a
Right.
museum.
Yeah, and in my experiences, and it sounds like it's similar to your experiences. The tour guides are so passionate about what they are showing you. They're
Yes,
proud of their country. They're proud of their city, and they bring along that excitement with them, which just makes the tour even better. So
exactly. And my tour guide was so in love with his job. He's been a tour guide for 20 years and he has not lost the passion. You can tell that he wakes up every day so excited to like show people this beautiful country, which I think is a really beautiful thing and a
yeah,
great thing to be a part of and to get to witness.
I totally agree. Let's spend the remainder of our time over in Iceland. So talk to me about
Yeah.
where did you stay? What was your hotel accommodations like? And then let's talk about some of the landmarks or attractions or tours that you took over in Iceland.
Yeah, so I got on a plane in Bergen, went to Oslo, and then flew over to Reykjavik. Reykjavik is the capital of Iceland. And I didn't stay in a hotel the whole time that I was there.
You did not.
I did not.
Okay, now
I
where did you stay?
I rented a camper van and I camped around the whole
Did you
country.
really?
Yes, I
Oh,
did.
that is so unique. I did not know that. I didn't know that
Yes.
you did that. That's cool.
So,
What gave you that idea to do that in the first place?
if I'm being honest, I was really focused on planning Norway that I kind of forgot I had to also plan Iceland until it was a bit close to the trip, like maybe 2 months out, 1 month out. I was like, oh gosh, I don't have a hotel accommodation, I don't have a rental car. And I was like, I could just knock both of these out in one go and just get a
That
camper
is
van.
insane. I can't believe you did that. That sounds like a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, actually. I didn't
Ha-
know this, but camper vans are actually really, really common in Iceland. Like it's a
oh,
common way
okay.
for people to see the country. So there was a ton of different companies to look through that just rent camper vans. Um, and then you just stop at campsites along the way. And
Had you done that here in the States before, or was this your first time?
that was my first time.
Megan, I can't believe that.
That was my first time. Very bold move to take.
It
But
was.
yeah,
I'm happy to hear that.
yeah, no risk,
That
no
is so
reward.
cool. Okay, so your accommodations was a camper,
Yes.
and you picked that up.
Well, it wasn't a camper. It was a van that was converted into
I gotcha.
like a camper van.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
That I've seen
It,
those.
if you see it on it, like it's like van life, that kind of thing, where they just like
Yeah.
add a table and they're like, "This is now a camper."
Well, in the newest episode of Van Life, you're going to talk about your experiences in Iceland.
Yeah.
Um, so you drove that around. Where did you visit in your camper van?
So I started in Reykjavik, and I actually completed the entirety of Ring Road. So if you haven't heard of it, Ring Road is a highway that runs around the entire country of Iceland.
Oh, cool.
Um, it's like 860 miles.
And
If
you
you were
drove
to,
the whole thing?
I did the whole thing.
Wow. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, if you were to drive it straight, I think it would be like 24, 27 hours or something like that. I broke it up into 5 days, so I would drive for a couple hours, stop along the way, and then stop to camp, and then I would just rinse and repeat the next day.
Now,
Uh,
did you have the stops where you would pull off and sleep at night? Were those stops that you had predetermined, or were you making that up as you went?
so I predetermined everything. After I found out
Good.
I was gonna be in a camp, good. I did plan something. So after I figured out, okay, I'm gonna do this camper van thing. I'm gonna drive around Iceland. I'm gonna see all of Ring Road. I was like, let me build out my itinerary. So I actually went on Google Maps and I started in Reykjavik, and then I put in the end campsite that I wanted, which was a campsite in Vik. That was my first day, and so I filled in, okay, where do I want to stop along the way? And honestly, in Iceland, a lot of the attractions that you'll see are around Ring Road. Some of them were like 600 meters off of Ring Road. So you were driving for 2 minutes and it was right there, this giant
Yeah.
waterfall or wherever we're stopping. So my first day, I went to Sky Lagoon. It is a geothermal lagoon in just right outside of Reykjavik. It's kind of like a competitor rival to the Blue Lagoon.
Oh, okay.
So the Blue Lagoon is like the main attraction in Iceland. I personally didn't go to the Blue Lagoon because I wanted to see what else there was. The Sky Lagoon's only been open for 2 years, but it was my favorite thing that I did on the entire trip in general.
Really?
It was so spectacular. Like they built it onto so you walk in and it's like all lava rocks and like surrounding you. The pool is warm, it's gorgeously blue, and it is an infinity pool that overlooks the ocean. And then they also have what they call like the 7 step ritual. And this is where I did the ice plunge.
Oh,
Um,
good. Okay, I've been waiting to hear about this.
yeah, so the 7 step ritual, you have to walk there from the lagoon. So you walk out into the lagoon and um, you start by a cold plunge. And it was so Iceland was a bit chillier than Norway. It was in like the 40s to 50s range outside. So the weather was getting chillier. It was getting breezier. Um, and they're like, get into this pool that's 12 degrees.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, for how long?
Yeah. So how long were you in there?
So a lot of people, I really just choked down how cold it was because a lot of people just put their foot in and was like, I'm not doing that. But I
Yeah.
was like, I need to see this through. Like
Yeah. You're
I
there.
I'm here.
Yeah.
How many other times am I gonna just step into a pool that's 12 degrees? Probably not ever
Right.
again. Well, I probably would do it again. I'll definitely do it again, but like not anytime soon.
Right.
So I was like, I'm gonna suck it up and I'm gonna do this. I stayed in there for a minute and a half.
Wow. Good for you. That's really cool.
I couldn't feel my bones after I got out. Like all the pain was gone from my body. I couldn't feel anything.
Well,
It
that's
was
because
just
you couldn't feel anything.
numbness. Yeah, it was just numb from the neck down. I didn't even know if I had limbs.
So,
Uh,
what do they do, or like, what's the process for after you get out? Are there blankets, and is it
no,
immediately drying off, or you're just
no.
like, this is like you're just outside and
you're outside, you're cold, and they're like, get into this hut. There's a sauna in there, and you're like,
Okay.
thank God, there's something warm. And so you go inside. That's the next step of the ritual. There's this gorgeous sauna. It's a dry sauna, and it has a glass side, so you could see out to the ocean. Um, so you're like sitting in this sauna, warming up. I sat in there for like 15 minutes to finally be able to like move my limbs again.
I was
I was
just gonna
so
ask how long
cold.
it
Like,
took.
yeah,
Yeah.
it took a while. Like I got into the sauna was hot, but I got in there and I was still freezing. Like I was still cold. It took a while for me.
Yeah.
I was like, it is not even hot in here. Like they need to turn up the heat. I'm cold. And yet you see like the rocks going like because it's
Yeah.
like sizzling. You're just you were
Have
just
you
so
seen
cold.
Have you seen the series on Disney Plus? I think it's called Limitless with Chris Hemsworth. Have you
Oh, I
seen
have
that?
not.
So I think it's six episodes, and it's about getting the most out of life, physically, mental health, and one episode is about like polar plunges, and he has to swim. I forget what the location was, but I mean it looked frigid, and then part of that was also being in a sauna. So
Yeah.
it sounds a lot like that episode. So if you haven't seen that yet, or anyone in the audience hasn't seen that yet, I do recommend it. It was a really interesting series, but part your story that you just told me right there about the plunge and the sauna remind me so much of one of those episodes.
Yeah, it was really funny too because the people working there are in hats, gloves, and winter coats. And you're in a bathing suit getting into a freezing pool and they're like stone faced. Like they've been there all day. They don't care about your pain. They're
Yeah,
like
they've
I
seen it.
I asked one of them. I was like, because I was like, oh, what's the first step? And they're like, you have to get in there. And I was like, what's in there?
What? Yeah, yeah.
Like, yo, what is in there? And they're like, it's a cold plunge. I said, okay, how cold? They said 12. 12 what? That's it? They were like, get in. And I was like, okay, we'll do it. Um, so yeah, I did the cold plunge and then you do a sauna. The next steps was like cold mist, so it's back in the cold. It's a lot of like hot and cold happening.
Yeah, yeah.
Back at the cold, then it was like a scrub, a steam room,
Okay,
a shower, and then back to lagoon, I think.
okay. It's supposed to be really good for you.
It was honestly, I felt like a new person when I left. Like
Yeah.
I think that I shedded my old skin and came
Yeah,
out a different creature. Like
that's
I
awesome.
felt so good leaving. The lagoon itself also had a bar like built in, so you can like sit in the lagoon and like have a drink, which was really cool. I had like a pear cider again, pear.
Again, yeah.
I like it. I like what I like. Uh, that was really good. It was very like funny because I didn't I kept consciously like having to like pick my drink up from the water because I realized that I was heating my drink from the
Really?
lagoon
Okay.
because the lagoon is so
Yeah.
warm
So.
and and the drink was like a long stem, so I kept having to like pick it up and be like, I'm making this really warm for myself. This is gonna be gross when I drink it. Um, so yeah, so that was like my first couple hours in Iceland. Wow, can I say I started off with a bang?
Sounds like it.
It was
And,
so nice.
and you said that was the highlight of your entire trip, was that
It
first day in Iceland.
it was the highlight of my entire trip. It was just so incredible. I just felt like so grateful to be there and to like experience something like that. And honestly, if people are going to Iceland and like you want to see the Blue Lagoon, you want to see any geothermal spa, I highly, highly recommend the Sky Lagoon. It wasn't very crowded, especially not compared to like the Blue Lagoon, and it was just such an amazing experience. Like the staff there is wonderful. It was just so
What
cool.
did what did that experience cost?
So if you want to just go into the lagoon, say you don't want to do the 7 step ritual. If you just want to go into the lagoon, it is 56 euros.
Okay.
Um, or I think it was like 5,060 krona. So that was like what the conversion was. But
Okay.
if you want to do the ritual, so you want to do the lagoon and you want to do like all of the other like sauna type stuff, then that was like I think my day pass was 112, but it like
Okay.
depends on the day. So it's like Disney how they like fluctuate the prices depending on the
Right.
season. So I was in Iceland towards what's actually considered the beginning of their winter season. So I'm sure if you went at like the peak summer season, you might see a different price, or if you go like in October or you go in March, then you might also see a different price
Right.
then. So
It
it
sounds
kind of
worth it to me.
depends. It was I probably would have given them my kidneys. I would have pulled out my kneecaps. Whatever they needed, I would give it over. I will still hand that over. It was so nice.
I don't know if the health benefits of the 7 steps would have overcome giving them extremities and body parts, but
Whatever they needed, I was willing to pay the cost.
that's
It was
funny.
so worth it.
What other attractions or landmarks did you see while you were there?
Yeah, so I also did the Golden Circle, which is just outside Reykjavik. You can do it as like a day trip. So I did it after the lagoon on my way to my first campsite. It's a couple different um, landmarks within one of their national parks. So I think one of the coolest that I saw was this gigantic waterfall. Um, Let me see if I can remember if I have the name of it.
While you're looking that up, I have to say I've been impressed with your mastery of the pronunciations of all of the towns and parks and landmarks that you went to. So
Listen,
um,
I
you
really
you
tried.
sound like a pro. Yeah.
I've really tried. I know that I'm still butchering them, but I've really tried my best. I would ask
They
them
sound right to me.
to I would ask at people at like the different campsites or like different places. I was like, "How do you say that?" Like I'm probably going to say it wrong still, but like I just want to know
Yeah.
how you say that. Because
Uh,
the language is very intimidating to look at.
yeah,
It's
it
got a
is.
lot of letters, it's got a lot of symbols. You're like, "Ooh, I don't really know what that looks like," but
And
it's easier than it looks.
yeah, and you took the right approach. From my international travels, the locals to those cities and tour guides and anyone from the pizza shop to people working at the airport, they appreciate the attempt in trying. As long as you're giving
The
it a
effort.
genuine effort, yeah, they're really appreciative and they are willing to work with you to get you what you need. So
Yeah, exactly. So along the Golden Circle, I visited. It's actually just called Geyser.
okay,
Geyser. It is a geyser that is actually taller than Old Faithful, which I thought was really interesting.
yeah, that's cool.
It also had there was actually 2 geysers there. So one of them was a bit taller than Old Faithful, but it was a dormant. It's considered like a dormant geyser, so like it doesn't go off very often. Like it doesn't shoot up very often. They said it's rare for it to do that. But the other one is just lower than Old Faithful, very similar size. Um, that was the Stroker geyser, and that one I saw it go off 3 times while I was there, like just walking around looking for different things. Every time I turn around, there's like this massive wall of water. I was like, what's happening over there?
Was that common or was that kind of special while you were there?
No, that one's pretty common. So if you want
Cool.
to see a geyser erupt, I definitely recommend going to see if you just look for geyser, like geyser, which is the one geyser's name, then it's literally right next to it. You have to pass the one to get to the other. So that was pretty cool to see. I've never seen a geyser before. Well, actually, I lied. I've seen the one at the Wilderness
I
Lodge.
knew you were going there. I knew it, Meg.
I've seen the one at the Wilderness Lodge.
I knew you were going there.
That one goes off once. It goes off at the top of the hour. This other one is a little less predictable, but it does go off,
And it's real.
and it's real, and you just look at it and it just sits there and like boils, and you're like, whoa, what's happening? Um, so that's part of the Golden Circle. I thought that was a very interesting thing to see, and then I also saw like several waterfalls. Um, and some of them you can like walk behind and they have paths and stuff like that, but I do recommend for travelers that are going to Iceland, there is so many waterfalls there, and if you're like interested in seeing them and hiking around them, bring really good waterproof clothes.
Mm.
Waterproof pants, waterproof jackets, bring a hat, bring a scarf. I brought a wool scarf with me and I wore it almost every day. Cuz it's so windy there that when you're near these waterfalls, it's just spraying you the whole time. And so then you're cold and wet if you don't have on good rain gear.
Yeah.
Um, and bring hiking boots because you will definitely need them.
Talk to me about seeing the Northern Lights. We haven't got to talk about that yet. You did try to see it while you're in Norway, but you did see it while you were in Iceland. So talk to me about what that was like to experience that firsthand. We've all seen photos or videos of the Northern Lights. What was it like experiencing that for yourself?
Yeah, so I experienced it on my third night in Iceland. It was honestly like really good luck because it was supposed to rain and be cloudy the whole time I was in Iceland. And it actually was the only day that I had a break in the rain. And the KP index started climbing, and I was like, I need to find somewhere that's going to be dark tonight. So I specifically picked a campsite that was a little further off Ring Road. Um, and I sat outside for 2 hours. It was 32 degrees outside. I had on my hat and, and a scarf and a jacket, and I just stood there and I stared at the sky for 2 hours. I went for a little nighttime walk and I just waited and I waited and I waited. And I was just like, I don't know if this is even going to happen. I don't know if I'm looking at the right place in the sky. I don't. And I will say there are tours that you can go on. I didn't have the time when I was in Iceland to go on any tours. So I was just like, I need to just really hope that this happens and that this is going to work out. And after 2 hours, I was like, maybe I should like go back in the camper and like warm up for a little bit, try again later. And then I saw green behind a cloud and I just started crying. And I was just like, there's no way that this is just going to like start happening. And it just spread across the sky. And it was just such a beautiful moment to like just be there. I
Yeah.
ended up not taking any pictures
Good. Good.
like of the Northern Lights. I just really wanted to like have that moment for myself. It was one of the main reasons I went on the trip, and
Right.
it was just so stunning and powerful, and I would have missed it had I not endured for just like a minute longer and like went
I'm
inside
so glad
for
that
the
you
weather.
did.
I probably looked like a creep standing outside for 2 hours just staring at the sky. But it was worth every second, and it was one of those things where you realize like I've been dreaming of this for so long and I'm standing right in front of it,
Yeah.
and now I get to chase new dreams.
Yeah.
And it was just so amazing to feel that and to like feel a self accomplishment that like I've been dreaming of seeing these lights as a kid, and here they are. I found them and they are ripping across the sky, and
Yeah.
this is just like this really powerful special moment that like I get to have for myself.
Yeah. It's a
Um,
little bit emotional.
I sobbed. Yeah, I
Yeah.
I was sobbing while I was watching them. It was just absolutely incredible. It's something I don't think I'll ever forget. I think even if I see the Northern Lights again, it
Yeah.
nothing will compare to seeing them that first time and
That
to
first
like
time.
have that moment and anticipation of like, are they going to show? Is it even going to happen? Are the conditions right? And then there they are, and
I
you're just
love
like,
that.
wow, yeah.
That's awesome, Meg. How long did it last in the sky?
It lasted for about 10 minutes.
Okay. So
And
that's
then
pretty long.
yeah, it was pretty long. You can definitely tell like some spots were different than others. Like it would fade and it would kind of move. But I would say I sat out there and watched it for like 10 minutes before I couldn't see it anymore. And then I think that it did show again like later in the night, but after that I was like, I have done my time. I have to get up in the morning and drive. I'm going back in the camper. It is cold. Mission accomplished.
Right, you did it. Yeah.
Yeah, I did it.
Um,
I get to rest now.
what time of the evening or night were you out there?
I started outside at like 9, so like just
Okay.
when it started getting dark, and I saw them around. I was actually outside for a very long time. I saw them around 12:30.
Oh, so you're out there a few hours then.
Yeah, I was out there. I was
Okay.
out there for a very long time. I did read online that like the best time to see it is between 11 and 2 a.m.
Okay.
So if you're like hunting for them, that's a good time to have it. But if you're going anywhere where you can potentially see the northern lights, even if you're a listener and you're in like the northern states of the US, I would recommend downloading that app because it'll alert you if there's a potential that you could see it. Like
Yeah,
if
can
the
you
conditions
tell
are right.
Yeah, can you tell listeners again what the name of the app was?
Yeah, so the app is called Hello Aurora.
Okay. Good.
Um,
Well, I'm going
it's
to download it.
yeah,
I'm not in the
it's a
north. I'm in Florida, so
it's
I'm not gonna see it. But I want to
it's a
have it, so
cool
I'm ready.
yeah, it's a cool app to have. You can like see where the lights are for that day. You can see like they have like a list of like best places to see it. So you can see like what countries around the world are able to see it. Honestly, the Canada sees the Northern Lights a lot. So if you don't want to have to travel to say Norway, you don't have to travel to Iceland, you don't have to travel to Finland. You could travel to Canada and see the Northern Lights, or you can travel to Alaska, or you can travel to. I saw the Northern Lights in Michigan, like on the map. Like you could, if you have that app, I think you could find them. That is your key.
That's the key. Yeah. Yeah. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's very
Any
cool.
last highlights that you want to share from your time in Iceland?
Um, there was a lot of cats in Reykjavik.
Really?
Like
Now, did you
not.
befriend any like you did the mountain goats?
Oh, so I did. So
Okay.
in Iceland. Oh, actually, in Iceland, at one of the glaciers, I actually saw seals, like
Oh,
wild
okay.
seals, swimming through the
That's cool.
glaciers.
That's really cool.
Um, I thought it was a mermaid at first. I had no idea what was in the water. I was like, because I just saw a head pop out, and nobody around me is like noticing. And I'm like, what's in the water? Like, what's out there? There's like these giant icicles, and you're like, what is going on? And it was a seal. It was like a whole pack of seals, just like
That's so cool.
swimming through the glaciers. I was like, wow, what to be a seal swimming through the glaciers is very interesting. Um, and
It's
I
always
saw
cool to
them.
see wildlife like that on a trip.
Yeah. I saw them as I walked the Diamond Beach, which like you can see that from one of the glaciers. You could just walk right along a path and it's like chunks of ice on the black sand beaches, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And then I did befriend the Reykjavik cats. They are not strays. They were very well fed and had collars.
Okay.
Um, they just like tourists and they
Just
like to roam
outdoor.
the streets. They're just outdoor. Um, yeah, I think other than that, Iceland was mainly sheep and horses. So
Okay.
if that's your thing, you could definitely befriend a lot of sheep and a lot of horses. The horses were really friendly. I did go up to some. I like pulled over my camper van and was like walked up to the fence, and the horses came right over to me. Same
Yeah.
thing with the cows that I saw. I befriended some lovely cows. Nothing. I will say nothing beats Freya the goat, but I, you know, they were nice still. They were good.
Yeah. That sounds cool. That sounds really cool.
Yeah. But overall, both Iceland and Norway were absolutely amazing places to visit. They were very friendly for tourists. Great for, great places to visit if you only speak English and that's something you're worried about going abroad, like not knowing the native language. They were very accommodating. Everyone was really kind to me. Even though I couldn't speak Norwegian, I couldn't speak the language in Iceland, they were still really kind, still really helpful. And they were honestly really easy to navigate still. So if that's something that you're worried about, I do recommend visiting because you will find beautiful landscape, okay food, and a lovely time.
Yeah, it sounded like a lovely time. I have enjoyed listening to the recap of your trip. I enjoyed following along on social media. So if somebody who's listening to this recap is interested in seeing photos and videos from your trip or planning or having you help them plan their next international trip, where can people find you online?
Yeah, so if you want to see more of my travels or you would like me to help you travel see and find your travel destinations of your dreams, you can follow me at Megan and the Magic on Instagram or TikTok. I'm also on Facebook at Megan and the Magic. And you can find me on the 407 and Beyond website under Megan Torrez. I should be under the travel agent page. So if you're looking for me, the 407 site is a great place to start.
Yeah, so that is if you're looking to get in contact with Megan, send her a message, start getting building out a quote and an itinerary. You can get started at www.407vacations.com/Megan Torrez. So, Meg, thanks so much for recapping your trip with me. It sounded amazing. I look forward to the content that you still have to post from your trip.
There's so much more to come. Yeah, I'm excited to share it with you guys and many more of my adventures to come.
Oh, is that a little hint?
Yeah, 2024 is going to be a big year. That's what I have
Good.
to say. Yeah.
Oh, I look forward to it. Thanks for the recap, Meg.